All right, so let's talk about the first discussion question. So I gave you a system of equations, and I was purposefully did not tell you what represented what here. So this is a system of equations in which X and Y are a prey species and a predator species in some order, um, and A, B, and C, D are constants. And I'm basically asking you to basically interpret all of the symbols here. So, and the fact that these symbols A, B, and C, D are positive, I think is crucial to making some of these determinations. So, first of all, which represents the predator and which represents the prey? Probably lots of ways to find these things out. So I'll just talk about the one that I think is the most direct. Notice both of these equations, so dx dt and dy dt, they both involve a term that includes both X and Y. So remember that X stands for a species of animal and Y stands for a species of animal, two different species, one which preys on the other. So the fact that this term has X and Y together, that it depends on both, um, uh, implies that there's something going on, like something about this equation, something about the rate of change of these two populations depends on interaction between the two. So the fact that I have a negative bxy and positive dxy tells me that, all right, interactions between these two species causes an increase, or sorry, a decrease in the population of species X. And it causes an increase in the population of species Y. And I think both of those things, but maybe more clearly, the fact that this interaction is bad, is it has a decreasing effect on the population of X. I think that's probably the strongest evidence that X is the prey species and Y is the predator species. Okay, so now that we've talked about which is which, so if X is the prey species, so X is talks about basically the number of prey animals there are. Let's be specific. I didn't ask you to do this, but what's a good prey animal? Um, like I can't think of anything. What lives here? What lives here? Um, Rats, snakes. Okay, so basically X is the snakes and their food source, essentially. A predator and his food source. So now that we are talking about this, now we can think about, by the structure of this system of equations, what are A, B, C, and D captured? So let's start with A. So A, it's positive. Well, I mean, they're all positive, but the term itself is positive, AX. So we have this term that describes an increase in the population of rats. And this constant, that the larger this constant is, the greater the increase would be in the population of rats. So many things that could do this, but let's think about them. What things would contribute to the increase in population of rats? Maybe most direct ones would be birth rate, but there are probably other things that factor into that. Um, like what things contribute to a higher birth rate? Food supply. I mean, lots of things that can contribute to a species' ability to find mates and procreate. But you could probably in this case, you probably encapsulate all of them into the idea of, the birth rate, the rate at which rats are reproducing. All right, so what does B represent? So like we said before, B is the coefficient of this XY term. So this has something inherently to do with the interaction between rats and snakes. And it's negative. So what does B represent? So it's negative, so it's a death rate. Yes, it's a death rate, but it's not just like natural death. It's not like rats dying of old age. This is specifically, um, you know, what's the right way to phrase this? Rate at which rats are eaten by snakes. I mean, lots of ways to kind of talk about this, but because of the fact that B is a coefficient of XY, both variables, there has to be some kind of involvement of both species here. I'll give you a counterexample. If we said that B was the death rate of rats, irrespective of snakes, I don't think you could make that claim. Because if that was true, then there would be no need for Y to have any involvement in that rate. One last way that I'll say this, that term BXY, the way that's written, that implies is that more rats will die. Rats will die at a faster rate if the population of snakes is higher. And if you're saying that the death rate of rats does not depend on snakes, then those two things don't agree with each other. So moving on to C. Now we're talking about things that have to do with the snakes, the predator population. So negative CY. So again, C is a positive number. So why is this a negative number? Or why is this term negative, negative CY? So first of all, it means that there has to be a loss. This represents a decrease in the population of snakes. So we can kind of mirror what A does. If this is the birth rate, if A was the birth rate of rats, C, could be the death rate of snakes. And what kind of things kill snakes? Well, I mean, they might die of old age. They're hunted themselves by birds. There's lots of things that can kill wild snakes, but all those things get, basically baked into that death rate. And finally, what does D represent? Again, this is an interaction term. When I say interaction, I mean this involves both X and Y. So there has to be some kind of involvement of both the rat population and the snake population. And this is beneficial for the population of snakes, plus DXY. So again, we can kind of parallel. Let's look at A again. One of the things I said is that the birth rate of the rats might have something to do with their food supply. If there's more food, there's more energy. They can turn it into energy to find mates, to actually procreate. I think the same kind of idea applies here. I think D is basically, let's think about how to phrase this. The effect of hunting on, I'll make it really clear, effective hunting rats on birth rate of snakes. So again, this is this question, and like many of the discussion questions, a lot of them are going to be open-ended. This one is kind of open-ended. I mean, I don't know if there's a way you could argue that X is the predator species and Y is the prey species. But there are probably lots of ways to get to that conclusion, the conclusion that I did. A through D, I'm sure many of you have different, many of you will probably have said similar but not identical things. So when I post these solutions, they are not meant to be the solution. They are meant strictly to be another way that you might think about the things I've asked you.